Welcome to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm your host, Daryl Scott, and together we will dive into the lives and careers of the jazz legends who have left a rhythmic imprint on the world. Be prepared to reminisce on the highs and the lows of their musical journey and the trials that sculpted their timeless musical gems. We'll preserve the legacy of these extraordinary maestros and find inspiration in the melodies of their lives. Subscribe now and never miss a beat. Now, let's get to the show.
Thinking about you late this morning, wondering how you're getting on. Heard you got your life together. I must be doing something wrong. I can't do without you. How I miss that morning smile. All my thoughts are about you. Miss your heart and your tender style. I can't do without you. It's so hard getting through the day.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. 90% of the time, I'm Daryl Scott. Our guest today is a young lady she sings, she writes songs, she's a performer, she does a whole bunch of stuff. And she's in Canada. Her name, JC Soul. JC, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm good, Daryl. How you doing?
Good. Excuse me. Now he's laying down. For those of you who don't know, there's a full-time member of this show that you hardly ever see. And I can hear everybody going, Daryl, where are the pictures? We have a dog named Brody. There are times when he is right here, like now he's on my feet, so I can't move because he's a 90-pound husky. And he wants to come in and listen, and he wants to be part of the show. And basically, he wants his own attention. So that is the Brody commercial. JC, let's talk about, first of all, this unique name. Because I'm just going to say, having the last name Soul is just cool. So how did you come up with this moniker?
Well, I thought long and hard, and I thought, what's something that can be short and sweet, because my real name is way too long. So I thought, let's use my initials, which are JC. And I thought, let's do Soul, but let's not, do the obvious SOUL, because
Right.
you look around and that's taken a lot. A lot of artists
Right.
have already used that. So I thought, let's think about the Spanish sun, Soul, SOL. And at the same time, I thought people are going to have a problem with this. They're going to think it's Saul. They're not going to know what to say. But I thought, I'll deal with it as I go along. And some people, even some of the DJs, when they're, posting stuff about my music, they still say Soul, SOUL. So you can't really control everyone.
Right.
But no, I just came up with it. I wanted something short and sweet, and it's actually on my license plate too. So I know where my car is when I come out of the grocery store.
Okay, so that means if I'm up there and I'm looking for you, I could just look for the license plate and we'd be fine.
You got it.
When did you start this singing career?
The actual career part of it started in my early 20s, but I had been, involved in music at home. I started singing when I was very, very young. My mother had been a vocalist, and we had a huge record collection, or she did. So it was there was music playing throughout the house all of the time. All of the greats of the day, my mother's favorite was Lena, Horne, and she loved Shirley Bassey, and Sarah Vaughn was one of her favorites. And, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., and all of the greats of the day. So when you grow up like that, it sort of is in your DNA after a while. You just think everybody's going through this. All of my friends must have mothers and that do this and music in the house, but that wasn't true. But I did sort of hook up with a lot of my friends as I grew up as a teenager that loved music. So, we got into all the music of the day, and we'd sing together and we'd have fun. But I didn't really get into it professionally until I was in my very, very early 20s. So traveled a lot. At first, it was just sort of basic, the Queen's Hotel and, Collingwood, Ontario type thing. So you have to work slowly into it to see what it's all about. And it was quite the experience. But as I got into it more in my mid-20s, I ended up traveling a lot. We traveled the world. performing, top 40 stuff. But because our management team was head of the Canadian touring organization, we got to go everywhere. So we worked in Switzerland, Germany. We worked in Las Vegas at the Las Vegas Hilton in the lounge there. The Reno Hilton. We even worked at the Fontainebleau in Miami, which was absolutely gorgeous and beautiful and a wonderful experience. So did all that, and it was fun. But it gets to be a grind after a while. It's, you don't always have great accommodations when you're traveling. You're eating out all the time. You don't see your family, you don't see your friends. So it's a tough go. Did it for quite a few years and then decided to sort of step back for a while and see, what I wanted to do for my life as far as building a life for myself monetarily. So I got out of it and got more into, first of all, I was, bartender and waitress, trying to figure out what I was going to do. I was doing part-time work, auditioning for commercials and things like that. That was really tough living in Toronto. And then I thought, let's get back into something that can actually bring me some monetary value. So I went corporate because I did have some business training early on. So I went corporate. I worked corporate for a couple of decades. And then when I retired, everything had changed in the music industry. Independent artists can do whatever they want. They can, find someone to work with easily, write their own music, have someone help them, with the arrangement and collaboration. And social media is huge. Without social media, no one would know who I am at all. So everything changed, and that's when my recording career really started. And I started with a fellow who said, let's go into the studio and record 6 cover songs from music that you love from the past. So we did that, and that was fun. The production value wasn't fancy, but it was a great experience and it got me started. And then what I did was I wrote my very first song that really did well, and that was Our Groove, which I believe that you're going to play. And that one sort of started me off and gave me the confidence to keep going, because by then I had really built a brand. Building a brand on social media is super important. Building a brand that people can relate to, that is positive. So all of that stuff together, and sort of learning as I went along with respect to what the admin work I need to do. I need to connect with a lot of other musicians. I need to connect with DJs. I need to connect with music curators. So there's so much involved that, as you're going along, you don't really even feel the growth, it just sort of happens. And then when you look back, you go, wow, that's amazing that this has happened. So that's how it all worked.
So when you're starting and you're at this young age and you're touring all these countries, is it fun? Because don't get me wrong, California is about the furthest I've been, but you've experienced so much more. What was that like? What do you are you the kid in the candy shop going, I want to have this, I want to go here, I want to go there? What are your experiences?
To be very honest with you, I found it very difficult because, again, depending on where you are, the accommodations were not fun. For instance, when we were working in Switzerland, some of the smaller towns, we'd live in sort of a rooming house where the bathroom was down the hall. And I remember one situation where Carnival was happening. So during Carnival in Switzerland, everybody's crazed. They're all drunk. And they're all playing music, whether or not they're musicians or not. And one time I was in the shower down the hall, coming out, trying to get things together, and I heard this loud banging on the door. And of course I'm thinking, who's that? And how am I going to open the door? I've got a towel on. And it was some German guy dressed in drag with fishnets on, screaming at me in German. So, and then, there were some rooms where it wasn't great. There was mice, so we had to tie our food up around the light because mice are in the room. But then, when you get a gig at the Fontainebleau, it's fabulous because you have fabulous rooms. So you don't know what you're going to get from one week to the other. But being on a 3-month tour in Europe, it can be difficult because it's a different culture, It's a different culture altogether. Now, So when we were working in a town called Zermatt in Switzerland, it's absolutely beautiful, right beside the Matterhorn. And
Hmm.
that was like a wonderland. That was gorgeous. And the people that worked in the hotel that we were at were all American. They were all
Okay.
American students. So it was wonderful. It all depends on where you are and what, and what's going on. It all depends. It's hard. It's hard.
The beginning sometimes is not the best, but the end or the travel along the way is what you live for. Um, I I'd like to go to Switzerland, but I'll just try to find your car with your license plate on it. Um,
It's fine to visit these places on vacation. Now, don't get me wrong, but when you're living there and you're not staying in the accommodations, or when you're there too long, it's just too difficult to cope with. Unless you're, Dave Koz or someone. If you're just back in the day, we were just a band and we were just over there doing the best we could. So
hmm, I'm just trying to imagine, take all that in, and that makes me feel, don't get me wrong, feel grateful for being right where I am and
mhm,
seeing and experiencing the things that I can experience.
yes.
There is there a difference between Canadian music and let's say American music, whether it's the sound or the style, um, the advertisement of the music? What's the biggest difference between the two?
Well, we're listening to a lot of American music here,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
So if you're talking about Canadian music that's produced here, it's like with anything. It's like with acting, with music. I guess all of the people that are really trying to be heard are moving to Los Angeles. They're moving to the States so that they can have some exposure. Because, here with radio stations, with some of the terrestrial stations, even if you're able to, even if they allow you to be on their playlist, it isn't for long, and they will only play 30% of Canadian content, and they're a Canadian station. So they're even wanting to play, songs from the US. So it's kind of frustrating for us, but the kind of music that's being produced here, I don't know, it's it's not they're not big with adult contemporary and smooth jazz. We do have one station, the Wave. They're great. Again, they only play 30% Canadian content, and they tend to go with the bigger artists.
Hmm.
So I guess that's the difference there. But we still have people playing in bars and clubs, and we have some great Canadian bands. One of them is Brass Transit. They're a Chicago cover band, and they're
Hmm.
absolutely incredible. The lead singer for Chicago right now is a Canadian singer,
Hmm.
Neil Donnell. So Jordan John is another great one. He's working with Tower Power. He's lead singer for Tower Power right now. So we've got some great people and great musicians of the genre that I like, but they're all they have to go to the States, right?
Wow. Okay, let's take a minute here and let's listen to our love, our groove,
Gonna play Natalie Cole.
our groove on the Jazz Flight podcast from our guest, JC Soul.
Now I'm that girl in a fantasy. Since we got our groove, everything's brand new. Now we're stuck like glue. Since we've got our groove.
So this is your first real release, this our groove.
Yes.
Talk to me about the feeling you had as you're driving in the car and this song comes on the radio. Are you driving in the cars, hitting them because you're so excited? Are you blowing your horn, or have you just rolled all the windows down and turned it up loud for the entire neighborhood to hear?
Well, I don't know if I was in the car when I heard my song on the radio, but when I heard it at home, I was thinking, wow, this is something that I've just dreamed of. I was just amazed that it could happen and so grateful. Um, and I think we talked about this before. do I critique my music? Did I critique the music the first time I heard it? I didn't, because I was so excited just to hear it.
Right.
But as we move along, and as I, as more releases are out there, I tend to critique them more, and I still get excited about it for sure. But I do more critiquing and more sort of thinking how we can improve moving forward. And sometimes artists are very hard on themselves because you can't help but compare, which you're not supposed to do.
Right.
You can't help but compare yourself with other artists that you love. And we don't always have the production value because we don't have the funding that some of the artists may have, and we don't have connection to some of the amazing people, that they may be using. So that's, something that I'm always working toward, is just to get better and better and see how I can improve the process and sort of be more happy with what I'm hearing.
It's funny you say something like that. The late David Sanborn has a comment. Interviewed him one time, and he never listened to his music.
Yeah.
And I remember asking him why. He goes, "Well, I just spent 8 hours on one song, so I think I know it pretty well. But
Oh, I know.
but but then sometimes I can't remember why I asked. Do you want to do it over? I mean, it's 2, 3, 4 months old, and you're like, I should have put that note here. I should have done
Oh,
this riff
yeah.
here. And
Yep.
I would think that would be the tough part is, do you wish to do it over?
Well, I don't wish to do it over because it would be too
It,
much, but I
right.
wish I wish that I would have done it differently in the first place,
Hmm.
for sure. Yeah. But
Hmm.
I mean, I hear that. I used to think when you hear artists perform some of the popular music live, they tend to change it a bit. And I always thought to myself, why are they changing it? I want to hear it the way that it was.
Right.
And now I know exactly why they're changing it. I totally get it now.
Talk about your writing skills. How long does it take you to write a song? How many songs do you write? If there's a drawer at your desk that has songs that you've written but have not recorded, how many songs are in that drawer?
Oh, wow. I've got a few of those. Actually, when I work with my writing partner here, we produce demos, and he's got a bunch of stuff in his, in his system that we haven't gotten to. We probably may never get to, because, as I move along, I change the way I want to do things.
Hmm.
But the writing that I do is very slow and methodical. I like it to come to me organically. I can't sort of force the writing of a song. So I'll start off just sort of with like a tune in my head, and as I go along, I record every bit of it on my phone. And that way I can sort of put the bits and pieces together. And once I've got sort of a structure down in my head or on my phone for the song, then I'll come down to my keyboard and I'll sort of plunk out the chord progressions that I feel that I want, to be a part of the song. I do have some basic keyboard skills. I can do that. So when I put all of that together, then, I contact my writing partner and we develop it from there. So that's how that works. Once we get into the development and the production, that's when things get complicated. So I always say that I love the beginnings, the raw beginnings of creating music, because it's just organic and sort of very innocent. I love that part of it.
Mm, mm, mm. I don't. That is, would you say that musicians are perfectionists?
I think the good ones are. I mean, you have to be. You have to be, because it's coming from your heart, it's coming from your soul. And they're like, songs are like your children, really. That's why it's so heartbreaking if, if any of your music's not being accepted the way you expected it to be, or, it's not charting the way you expected it to be. It's heartbreaking. And it's, as artists, we're very, very sensitive, and it's hurtful when that happens. So, it's a tough thing. It's, joy and pain, sunshine and rain, right? It's
Heard that before.
yeah. It's tough. But at the same time, we have to do it. It's an addiction. It's what we have to do.
So if you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
That's a good question. I don't know what I'd be doing, because I'm sort of retired from my corporate career, and Actually, I hadn't planned any of this. It just sort of started happening. So I don't know what I'd be doing. Probably not a heck of a lot. So this is really good for me to have something to do,
It
something to keep my mind occupied, and the joy that I love to sort of create a bit of a legacy for myself and, end the last part of my life.
you still got
Not to be
100.
morbid.
You still got 122 more years to live.
Oh
So
my God,
listen to
don't,
you.
don't say that.
All right. Yeah, come on. I'm older than you, I bet. We'll talk about that later. We don't mention age on this show.
No, no, we don't.
No. Let's listen to so back in 1975,
Mhm.
when we were, maybe 2 or 3 years old. Um,
Ah,
there was a young lady by the name of Gwen McCrae. She had a brother named George.
yep.
They're R&B stars. But Gwen did a
Mhm.
song called Rocking Chair, which you have covered. Let's take an opportunity to listen to Rocking Chair, originally done by Gwen McCrae, now done by JC Soul on the Jazz Flyte Podcast.
Sexy baby, sexy, good loving daddy. Let me be your rocking chair. Just rock me away from here. Let's get it on now. Come to me, baby. Let me be your rocking chair. Just rock me, woo, rock me gently. Make me feel like a cloud in the sky.
JC, that's a wonderful version. I like that. I'm going to find the original version of Gwen McCrae's Rocking Chair, and I'll find yours, and we'll play them side by side. And I will continue to make a mess of my office as I start that and wind up playing 104 other songs and put all the covers on the floor and then have to put them all up. So what do
That's a
you got?
great visual.
What do you got going on now? What's happening in your musical life?
Well, right now I'm in the early stages of planning a duet with a wonderful male vocalist that I've grown to. Well, I've actually connected with him, but we've sort of been friends with for the last couple of years. I had listened to his voice, and I also did a duet called "Calling Out." That was an original that I had written, and a young man named Jason Simmons performed that with me, and his voice really suited the style of that song. The song that I want to cover now, I need more of sort of like a Luther type voice, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
So this young man, I won't say his name right now because nothing's ever set in stone at this point, but we're planning a duet of a Burt Bacharach song that Luther actually covered as well. It's a wonderful, beautiful song. I don't believe it's ever been done in duet form. So I thought, the whole answer back thing would be really cool for this song. So I'm super excited, and I'm hoping that, that'll come out within, at least by maybe late spring.
Okay.
So I can't tell you too much more than that, but
That
I'll let you know when we're done, Daryl.
that's I have this process in my head, and I'll tell you the story once we're done.
Mhm.
Things hit this filter in my brain,
Uh-huh.
and it is decided at the filter whether or not it should come out of my mouth or whether or not I just keep it to myself. That I learned as a child, and you can thank my mother for that. But
Mhm.
that's a whole other thing. But yes, please keep us in the loop when you have new stuff going on,
I
when
will.
you are releasing stuff.
Mhm.
We'll get it out on our social media and get our folks to give it a listen. What's in your future outside of this project that you're working on, this duet? What else? What's in your future?
That's a good question. I try and not to think too much ahead because, again, funding, you
Hmm.
have to make sure the funding is there in order to have a business plan and to move forward. So I kind of sort of take things as they come and just sort of put out singles. I do want to put out an EP with all of the music that I've done. That's a possibility that may happen. Haven't made my mind up on that yet because you're never really sure if people really care about listening to an EP when they can listen to each song streaming.
Right.
I mean, do people even have CD players anymore? I don't know if there's any point of producing a CD. I know when I bought the Bruno Mars CD, 24 Karat Gold, a few years ago when you open it up, he said, "Thank you for buying my music." I mean, even
Right.
the big players are, not producing CDs because people just don't play them anymore. So I'm just kind of taking one day at a time and enjoying what I'm doing. And if something great happens moving forward, if I can receive some more funding to move forward, that's what I look to. So we'll see.
I, editorial comment. It is nothing against you. It's just against this whole process now. It's just
Mhm,
horrible. It just is.
mhm.
Um, we have a thought of something that we want to do to get more music out there, but I don't know if musicians are getting CDs or have CDs. If I wanted to, if I said, JC, I need 10 CDs to do a giveaway, do you have any?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I mean, if I can, I made an EP, the EP that I did cut some CDs from that. But I ended up giving them all away because I was so excited that I got
Right,
a
right,
CD
right,
that I get. But you have to order them, you have to pay money for them. They
right,
don't, they're not free, and you have to have a way of marketing them. So it's not something I didn't find, a lot of satisfaction from that. So I didn't really think about doing that too much. But if people want to go to my website, I would love them to go to my website, jcsoulmusic.ca. You can hear what I'm doing there, and you can see my electronic press kit, and I just love for people to visit the website because it's websites are always something that they're a joy for us to have. I think a lot of people don't know that um, there's a lot of work put into them,
right.
and we do like people to visit. So please do jcsoulmusic.ca.
Thank you. That was going to be my next question, but
All
you have
right.
already taken care of that. I appreciate that. Um, I appreciate spending time with you. This is the one thing about this show is we have the opportunity to talk to people that we wouldn't normally have the opportunity to speak with.
Mhm,
Um, we're looking to do some things. I tend to be a person who keeps things close to my vest, and then when they come out there, you'll find out about it.
mhm.
You'll get calls from me about probably the next two things I'm working on.
Cool.
Um, but the biggest thing is your music's very good. Like I said, I'm going to find there's a lot of music in this room. I'm going to find that version of Rocking Chair and play them back to back and everything. JC, stay positive. Keep doing what you're doing. It's a shame you're in Canada.
Well, I kind of like it here.
I've you spoke of Carnival before in Switzerland.
Mhm.
I've been to the Carnival in Toronto.
Right, Caravana. Yeah.
Oh, Carabao, that's what it is.
Mhm.
And it's
It's
I,
wild.
I the greatest thing was is we are walking down Young Street, I think it is.
Yeah.
We're standing at a crosswalk, and I look to my right, and I see the side of a horse,
Uh-huh.
and there's a policeman on it. And I look up and I go, "We're not lost, but we're lost." He goes, "Just follow me." And he and the horse, they went on this little route, and we followed them, and he was a tour guide, he was a policeman. It was great. The other thing was it's a mess up there when that thing is going on. There's
Oh
trash all
yeah.
in the street and everything.
Oh yeah.
So we're up there. A friend of mine was going to an art show. So that Sunday morning we wake up, I walk out on Young Street, nothing.
Hmm.
It's like a giant vacuum cleaner came by and sucked it all up. So
Yeah, big cleanup.
part of me wants to go up there and watch that as opposed to because I'm serious. It is. I can't imagine. I can't remember the size, but it's huge. Young Street is what the longest street in Toronto or whatever.
God, yeah, it's huge. It's
That
it's it's
that
it's
that
very long. Yeah.
that gold building at the corner, which I went I went over and scratched the building just to make sure the gold wouldn't fall off. But yeah, so that's one of the coolest things I've ever done. But JC, props to you. Keep the music coming. We'll keep putting it out there and letting people know. And
Okay.
we'll talk again soon about this stuff. And like you said, make sure you get that new single out to us, and we'll
I
go from
will. I
there.
will. I'll get it to you.
Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. You've been listening to the Jazz Flight Podcast. Our guest today has been JC Soul. I didn't do it. I think the next time you need to get an announcer for a concert you do, and I'll even just record it for you, and you can just play it just to see what happens. I have no sense whatsoever. Thank you again, and we'll talk to everybody next week. Take care. Thank you for tuning in to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I hope you enjoy these stories and soulful melodies that grew through the doors of time. If you want to stay connected with the latest updates and episodes, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. Until next time, I'm Daryl Scott.